Good evening, Tuckahoe. Welcome to the March 11th meeting of the Tuckahoe Zoning Board of Appeals. I want to apologize to everyone for the delay. I can assure everyone of this village that the delay was because of serious work that this board has been doing tonight. Just so the public is aware that the work that we've done tonight is not the only work we've done. We have had many special meetings in the last 30 days. Most recently, Member Palladino and I met with legal and actually had a conference call with the chairman of the planning board just to continue to get a greater understanding of everything to make sure we get it right. And so I hope everyone who may be tuning in and waiting for us, please understand that it's for a good reason. Okay, so we have our March 11th meeting, and the first thing we'll do is have a roll call, please, Nance.
Member Ringwald?
Present.
Member Scalzo?
Present.
Member Palladino?
Present.
Member Barendez?
Present.
Chairman Gallo?
Present. Okay, next thing I want to do is have a pledge of allegiance, please. Everyone, please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. The first thing we want to do is approve the amended minutes of the February 4th meeting. And this is something that our newest member, Member Ringwald, may want to abstain because he was not here. So I'm going to make a motion for the approval of the amended minutes of February 4th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to, before we get in any further, I want to welcome our newest member, Tom Ringwald. And I believe Tom was on another board, and I believe he's a longtime resident of the village of Tuckahoe. And is there anything, Tom, you'd like to say?
No other than thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to do this service. I'm learning a lot very quickly.
Is there anything the members would like to say?
Just like to wish the newest member good luck.
Welcome aboard. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Second that.
Okay, great. Okay, we have a lot of properties on tonight's agenda. However, a number have been adjourned. First one adjourned is 50 Columbus. That has been adjourned. 56 Underhill is also adjourned. 10 Fisher is adjourned. And let's see, 93, 95 Main Street is adjourned. Am I correct on that one? Yes. Okay. So that leaves us with
32 Pleasant's adjourned too. The applicant's requesting adjournment on 32 Pleasant.
Right.
okay. So, wow. Okay, so the first one I'm going to call up is 73 Main Street, a Subway restaurant. Would the applicant please come up and present to the board? Okay.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name's Leonard Brandis. I'm the architect for the subway station, subway that we're trying to propose at 73 Main Street. What we are looking for is a variance for parking. The existing space was previously a office area, which was required under code to have 5 parking spaces. Under the new arrangement, setting it up as the restaurant, we are only required to have 4 parking spaces. To help coincide with the lease, we were able to acquire a parking spaces for 2 vehicles in the lot next door to this building, and so now we're down to 2 parking spaces required. It is an existing building. The building was built well before the codes for parking was required, and we were looking for that variance.
Okay, my question for you is, when you say Subway, this is the familiar brand that we are familiar with in Subway as far as like a delicatessen type restaurant?
Yes, it is. It is the franchise restaurant, which does not have cooking on premises. It is just baking, and they have basically, it's a deli.
And my question is, has this corporation, have they done any research as to the viability of the business at this location?
Yes, Subway has done research in the area, and originally they were looking at another spot on Columbus Avenue and discovered that there wasn't enough foot traffic. This area did afford a lot more foot traffic, and also a lot more people on a daily basis. The medical center just up the block and other offices all around create this traffic that they're looking for. They're not looking for a place for parking, at McDonald's. They're looking for people to be able to come in for lunch or for breakfast even. They have the breakfast sandwiches now, and be able to walk over and get the sandwich and move on back to their offices or out to the park.
My next question is, when you say they were looking at a space on Columbus, Columbus is a long road in the village of Tuckahoe, probably one of the longest ones. Was it north or south area of Columbus? Corner of what?
Right down by Main.
So
26
down
26 Main Street.
across from the post office. Okay, I understand. And they felt the foot traffic further up here was better.
Right, the traffic seemed to be going on a daily basis. They're at night, maybe there's more residences right now, but they know that there's more residents coming up in this direction, coming up Main Street. And as I said, during the daytime, there's more offices and people who are certainly going to be using their.
Do we have a ballpark of hours of operation?
You want to come for that? Yes. It's Bill Taylor from Subway and Subcon.
How are you?
Mr. Taylor, you're the applicant, or the fellow's going to work in it, or you represent Subway?
I represent Subway, Bill Taylor, 75 Washington Avenue, North Haven, Connecticut, 06473.
Okay. So you're the one that actually did the research?
Yes, and our hours of operation are proposed to be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
To 10 p.m.
Yes.
Building department, do we have any restrictions on the time? Anything for a restaurant, they can stay open until 3 o'clock in the morning, nothing matters. Okay, thank you. So you've done research onto our wonderful village, which we are very proud of and are very happy of its growth, and it's an exciting growth. Many people, I don't know how familiar you are with this village, have been explained quite clearly how happy we are with the growth, and therefore you've done research where you feel, there are, this is not necessarily in our purview, but just as a curiosity, there are other delicatessens that sell sandwiches on this thoroughfare, and even with them, you feel that there's enough potential business?
Absolutely, and we have a franchisee that would like to invest and grow a business here. And
But you've done the research that shows it. You've done the demographics. Can I ask anything about them, what the studies are?
I apologize, I did not bring any demographics with me this evening.
Have you done it before? Do you do it in every place that there may be a location for this?
We do, yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Well, I think it speaks highly of the village that a company would come in and do demographics and determine that they feel there's enough, business. It's not really for us to decide. It's not on the board, but as a long-term resident, and I scratch my head as to this, so I just like that clarification, and I'm pleased to hear it, as we do have additional apartments being constructed now on Main Street further up at Midland. And obviously, between there and the railroad station, there's foot traffic. And on top of that, the foot traffic that people going to the beauty parlor or what other.
You're really hitting a lot of the points. That is very correct. Yeah.
Well, to me, it's pretty obvious, and I would assume that, it's just that there are already 2, as far as maybe 3, depends how you count them. So, one of the things we're concerned with, or something I'm concerned with, is the vacancies of the stores and the survivability of the stores. And I hate to see a business open up and then not survive. So hearing that a corporation such as your own has done the research and feels fairly confident, that gives solace to me. Is there any questions from the board to the applicant?
I've got a couple questions. So the term fast food and franchise is kind of loaded terms in many instances. And this Main Street corridor is fairly busy, very congested from our point of view. We're very concerned about parking in general. We've got several applicants that are looking to expand their buildings and uses, and are also asking for parking variances. So, of course, many applicants in a row are asking for parking variances. So, I'll start with traffic, though. Have you guys done any traffic studies as to what type of, and I'm talking about not foot traffic, but vehicle traffic, as to what kind of increase in traffic we might see on Main Street due to this subway coming in?
Actually, we weren't really anticipating an increase in car and vehicular traffic. We are really more interested in pedestrian traffic coming to the space. We do realize, we know there is parking around the corner. There are, public parking spaces all over. Across the street from here is another public parking lot. But that's not really what we were anticipating. They were anticipating foot traffic throughout.
We have our Frank. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's your perspective on the increase in traffic, vehicle traffic from operations like the one they're proposing, and what would be kind of best practice in figuring that out as to whether it would be a detriment to the community? Obviously, it's kind of we obviously want great businesses.
Before Frank answers that, and Frank wasn't prepared for that question.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not. I understand.
So here's the question that I'm going to ask Member Scalzo. Do you think that people from outside, even within a half-a-mile radius, are going to say, oh, gee, I want to drive over to the subway and get a sandwich? I don't know if they order over the phone or not, but my experience with Subway is I tend to just kind of go there when it's convenient for me. It's not something that I look forward to ordering 5 or 6 sandwiches. So this is the question, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm just, because you bring it up and I didn't think of it before. Is this a business that is 100%, in your opinion, before we hear from our other members, our professionals, is this a business that people just say, I'm walking down the street, there's a Subway, I'm going to get something, or is this a business where people say, oh, gee, there's a Subway down there, I must order a sandwich from Subway?
Well, I would say it's probably a little both, of course. I can imagine that, many of the patrons will, of course, be people walking to and from the train, people that work in the area for sure. But, at lunchtime, I could see a lot of high school students from Tuckahoe and Bronxville coming and eating at Subway. I mean, that clearly seems reasonable.
I think that's reasonable.
So, that's why I throw it out there as a possibility. And look, in general, we want to attract people to Tuckahoe. It's generally good for Tuckahoe, but I just want to make sure we're careful in our consideration before just...
Before Mr. Fish answers that, I will ask the applicant, do you have any ideas, just curiosity? I mean, maybe, it's wrong for us to ask this question. Is it mostly foot traffic or
Yes,
over the phone orders?
We're expecting mostly foot traffic. Subway is not a place of real destination. It's a place of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
It is intended to be service the people that are within walking distance of us, the people that are be passing by regardless of whether we were there or not. And I would not expect that us adding a Subway restaurant and with 8 seats? 10
Yeah,
seats?
8 seats is
With
what we have.
8 seats would really cause any sort of major traffic jam on the street.
Can I say something, Ron?
Yes, sure.
I think one of the considerations and one of your concerns is if we have difficulty in terms of traffic and parking, would that create a problem for the viability of Subway? And I think what he's saying is they find locations that really exist on foot traffic. In other words, if there isn't sufficient foot traffic, they're not putting the subway in, so that their ability to thrive is going to be fine based on what they normally do in their way of studies to support the business. So if people can or cannot drive, it isn't going to impact their ability to succeed there if they've done their homework correctly.
We're extremely aware that there is not an abundance of parking here, and one of the things that attracted us to this location, it is very, very downtown, very villagey, and it would capture a majority of walking pedestrians, walking customers, rather than driving customers.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Member Ringwald, do you have any information on having a subway in similar villages to the village of Tuckahoe?
That's a good question, yeah.
Yeah.
Neighboring,
Any neighboring or,
We have one in the village of Mamaroneck.
same kind of
Very
setup,
similar-
limited
similar-
parking and,
Similar situation,
okay.
where we actually have parking in the rear of the building, similar to this one also, and there's a high school close by.
In this proposed parking, the two spots that you have, where are they located? In front of the building, behind the building?
Those are next to the building itself. It's up on the street that's adjacent. It's
But,
next, the
but
building
to
itself
clear,
has a
those,
parking-
those are gonna be for employees,
employees.
let's
Those
be
are for
honest.
employees. Those are
Yeah.
for employees, those two spaces. You have to have passes in order to get it. We did secure the passes for the two spaces already.
You're not going to have limited time parking in front of the store? You know,
No,
10-minute
those are
parking?
metered parking.
Right.
That's metered parking all
yeah, I
around
think
there
it's
right
1
now.
hour in front of the store,
Okay.
if I'm
Right.
correct.
And just to reiterate that, as it was originally, as offices, it was requiring to have 5 parking spaces, where now we only need 4 parking spaces. So we're reducing the space load by code.
Just for my own edification, the store in Mamaroneck, is it on Mamaroneck Avenue?
No, there is one on Mamaroneck Avenue, I believe that's Mamaroneck, but there's also one in the village of Mamaroneck,
Okay.
which is down along the water, and I think you gotta take a right at the end of the avenue and go way down there.
By Harbor, okay. And how
It's
long,
been there for several years.
that's my question, okay. They've been successful for several
It's
years.
been there for several years.
Thank you.
Keep in mind that the lease is actually with Subway itself, not the franchisee. So they are investing their own.
It's a
more
AAA lease, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, all right, they answered my question on parking. What about deliveries
Right.
and, and trash removal?
Deliveries come only once a week, and that can be done at night, and we'll be taking care of that, so it's not, it's inconvenient, so it's not a problem for the town itself, either at night or even early morning before there's any traffic. As for the garbage, we do have spaces in the back of the building. Actually, I could give you some diagrams that we're setting up. A little bit in terms of parking and what you see here.
Okay.
Shows some of the diagrams of parking, different areas around it, also the other slide shows in the back of the building that we have garbage containers. The garbage containers come around the back.
So the parking that you have is off Cameron? And the garbage you said is what again?
Garbage it'll be supplied, it will be kept in the back of the store, and then comes around the side of the store and be picked up. Do we work out of 5 days a week? I think
And
that's where
is-
we ended up.
Is that village or is that outside?
Private?
Is that the village? The village part, village will be taking care of that.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant from the resident, from our members?
Just one last thing on garbage. Will you provide any additional receptacles in front of the store? Because otherwise people, students, whatever, will generally use public trash cans.
I think that's a great idea, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple of quick questions. for
Sure.
Mr. Brandeis. The applicant here is Frank Medeo,
Right here?
and can you just tell me how he fits into the how he's the applicant? If you could just go through that with me?
Frank Medeo is the franchisee from Subway. Subway is the leasee, and he basically subleases, I guess is how it would be set, from Subway itself, and he is the franchisee for the product.
So he's the sublease of the property. And who signed the lease for the parking spaces? Was it, so he did individually too? So he's the, Are you
Yeah, but
subleasing?
who was the guy who signed with the landlord? You or Subway?
Gus Demopoulos?
Okay.
I think they should get that in writing, just so
Yes.
it's
Certainly.
When you say in
Solidified.
writing, I mean on the record.
between them. No, a sublease for the parking spaces in writing.
So we
that
should have a
appeases
copy
us.
of it, you mean?
Yeah.
There's some sort
Okay.
of guarantee of the 2 spots, you know.
Okay, that's reasonable. Right, Lenny?
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions before we open to the public? Okay, thanks, you can have a seat. I'm gonna make a motion to open the pub. Oh, Frank, I'm sorry, yes, I apologize, Frank. Let's hear from Frank.
I just add on the traffic situation that basically the trustees have zoned this so that any retail establishment or office establishment could go in here. So you're faced with just balancing benefit to them versus detriment to the public. And is this a use, as they're saying, that might have slightly less traffic than another retail or office use? This seems to rely a little bit more on pedestrian use. We happen to be planners from Mamaroneck, so I'm familiar with the subways in Mamaroneck. Now, Mamaroneck's a little different because the village has a fairly substantial parking areas in back of their main street, which is actually Mamaroneck Avenue, and where one of yours is, I think, is also on the U.S. Route 1, the Post Road. So it's a little bit different. They have probably less parking on the Post Road, where one of them is, more parking on that serve Mamaroneck Avenue for employees. So in Mamaroneck, they encourage employees to park in the public parking. But I think the big point here is that if in fact they're relying more on pedestrian in and out of this, even though they're going to have traffic from high schools, they're going to have that traffic, I think. Is that traffic any more than you would get from another permitted use here? You've got a range of retail uses that are permitted and a range of office uses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Frank from the board? Okay, great. I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing. You guys can sit down. On 73 Main, yeah, okay, 73 Main Street Subway Restaurant. I'm making the motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now open on 73 Main Street Subway Restaurant. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak in reference to this property? Yes, sir, come on up. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Albert Stern, 14 Westview. I'd like to make some points for you to consider regarding the Subway shop. I will just read them to you and leave this for the record.
Okay,
One, I believe the village identity and character is being lost in the pursuit of tax money. Let's not destroy our village character and desirability for short-term chasing of revenue dollars. Number two, this is a chain store. In 2013, the town of Eastchester debated this very issue. They called for a moratorium on such projects. They heard from both sides on the issue, and they passed a law that prohibited fast, casual, chain-type food stores in the town. Supervisor Calavita was quoted in a news article expressing the town board's concern that such a chain store would cheapen the retail areas. Subway is not upscale, it is definitely downscale. Our village, our small village of Tuckahoe, would be no less cheapened if you were to approve this Subway application. We should strive to encourage unique, higher-end businesses to locate here and avoid chain establishments. I would suggest you call a moratorium to have more debate on the issue of fast casual, chain-type stores. 3, we should aim to coordinate our zoning goals with those of our surrounding municipalities. Neither Eastchester nor Bronxville permit chain-type stores. We are part of a town that includes 2 villages. Why isn't Tuckahoe in accord with other municipalities of our town? 4th, loss of revenue for small independent shops. This is a genuine risk. Have you read the signage for Nikki's Deli, for Cafe 72, even for Swirl and Joy? Each of these signs that they say that they offer sandwiches. Permitting a store like Subway, whose entire focus is to sell sandwiches, can only threaten the economics of similar shops already located here. I would suggest number 5, keep the hearing open to allow members of the public to comment in writing or in person. And incidentally, on the Subway website, it seems that they have already decided that they have a site here and that they're open for business. It says, open for business shortly. I don't know why this happened because they haven't even gotten their approval. That's all I have to say.
Okay, what I'm going to ask the board, our board, is to hold off on questions and commentary until we have all the questions from the residents, if that's okay with everyone. Let's get everyone's opinion before we,
Fine with me?
okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Al, for coming. Yes, Ms. Angelillo.
My name's Victoria Angelillo. I own 84, 86, 88 Main Street.
Yes.
In the interest of brevity, I'm not sure the man's name,
Al.
but instead of repeating everything he said, I agree 100%.
Okay.
One of my other problems is that you have before you another applicant or a few applicants, and you're trying to make Tuckahoe a nicer or upscale community. And I can't see how you can ask one person to build this, which is upscale and a lot of money, and then have a Subway come in. What's next? McDonald's? I mean, I'm very serious. Parking is an issue. We all know that. Hangout is an issue. You're talking about high school kids or whatever, and they're going to come and hang out. Just so you're all aware, I was approached by Subway. I did not believe Subway. Subway didn't approach me. A broker approached me. I did not believe Subway belonged here. I've been a resident since I was a child, and then I bought this building. So I am still very caring about what this village does and how they do it. That's all. I just really agree with that gentleman. I'm glad he got up before me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else like to come up and speak about the application before 73 Main Street? No one else? Really? Okay. I have some comments on what was raised, but before I say anything, I would like to ask my board members if they have something they'd like to say about it. No?
Excuse, yes,
Yes,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to say something.
Sure.
Whether, I'm not saying whether I'm for or against or whatever, but I think when the points that the two people that just spoke were, should be addressed more to the Board of Trustees. We uphold, or how should I say, the zoning code, okay? We don't change it, all right? It's changed, and some of the things that they were asking with regard to permitting or not permitting is not within our realm, okay? It's within the realm of the Board of Trustees, unless I'm mistaken, okay?
No, you're not mistaken. Before you is an area variance seeking 4 parking spaces down to 2.
Yeah, that's it.
So you're going to apply your
Yeah, that's
test.
it. That, unfortunately, that's all we're allowed to vote on.
Yes, Ms. Angelo, come back to the microphone.
Wasn't the application for a change of use or change of something else? I don't have the...
No, it's a parking variance.
Just parking, nothing else. Okay, thanks.
Is there anybody else from the public that'd like to come up and speak about Subway? All right, my comments are very much in line with what Member Palladino said. This board does not make law. We are not elected. quite clearly, under this country's constitution, laws are made by elected officials. We are happy to be in our position that we are, which is appointed. Our job is for applicants, and it happens a lot in this village, a village that was created well before the zoning laws were created. The zoning laws came into effect as needed by the village board after a number of the properties have been built. So what we are faced constantly and happily, and something that we take on as a positive challenge, is how to strike a balance for the applicant based on buildings that were built a long time ago and what the needs are today. And there we give a variance to the existing zoning law. So we are not faced with a situation where delicatessens are banned from Main Street and the applicant comes to us and says, we want to create a Subway delicatessen. And they're asking us to overturn or give them an exemption from a law of that nature. This is an applicant that needs a variance for parking, something that we're very familiar with, something that has come before this board constantly, and it's something we wrestle with on every application. And this is probably, if you want the number one problem that we face, and it is parking. How do we balance, the needs of a business that wants to locate here and just there isn't enough parking? Do we say, let's just leave empty stores or wait for something that doesn't need the parking and leave, the property, in an empty situation, which does put a pressure on a tax? And, Albert Stern did raise the issue of tax revenue. And what many people may not understand is that commercial property has the ability, under the law, to certiorari. So if a landlord owns a particular property and is unable to rent it for various reasons and is being taxed at a high number, and we all know what the taxes are, that owner has the right to go to court and tell the village, or go to a court to ask a judge to tell the village that they're unable to rent for whatever reason and reduce their taxes until they're able to rent it. That's the law, because if they don't, they're going to go broke and the village ends up taking it and back, and that's not a road I believe anybody wants to go down. So we don't want that to happen. We want everything to be rented. We want the tax base to be solid. So we are looking at a parking variance, which is not a high variance, not a use variance, as I stated. We're looking at a parking variance here. Now, as far as businesses, yes, the town of Eastchester has a law that prevents or bans franchisees, chain stores, whatever you call them. That to me is a broad term. I mean, it could be a Home Depot. I mean, do you stop a Home Depot? I mean, obviously that's a very large one. They have that law, and it exists, and it has stopped other businesses. And everybody cites McDonald's as the reason. The village, to the best of my knowledge, does not have that law. If anybody here who is in opposition of the subway has gone before the village board in the past and said, you need to adopt the same law as the town. And again, very briefly, we're a village, we're independent. As of 1902, this village is independent of the laws of the town of Eastchester. So we make our own laws. And if anybody in this village feels that we should not have a chain store, a fast food store here, I would have hoped that they would have gone to the village, the elected officials, the Board of Trustees, and said, you know, you need to make this law. And to the best of my knowledge, that's never occurred. So it is unfair for any resident who feels that chain stores, fast food stores shouldn't be allowed in this village. It's unfair to them, to us, to this board, for them to come to this board and tell us to enforce a supposed law that another municipality has adopted. That's not our purview. Again, we're not elected. We don't make law. We give exemptions to law based on circumstances which we feel are fair or unfair. So this is complicated. We do not look and say, well, there's a delicatessen next door and there's another one over here. There's 3 delis, and we shouldn't approve their parking variance because there's too many delis, or we shouldn't approve their parking variance because there is, we don't like the way they bake their bread, or we don't like the salami that they use. That's not what we do. But this is something that we really have to seriously consider. And because any decision that we do make will be setting precedent. I respect Ms. Angelillo's decision not to rent a particular tenant. That's her right. This is America. She can rent to whoever she wants. She's been, in my opinion, that property has been a stalwart here, and has had very good tenants in the past, and she is very much allowed to make that decision. But her decision, we don't take that into consideration as to what another landlord is going to rent to. If a landlord decides that's who's going to rent to, it's within the law, and we feel that the variance is not extreme, then, that would be our decision. Again, what this board does is, this village was built at a time when there weren't a lot of cars. And so therefore, everything that was built back then doesn't have a ton of parking. And we have to wrestle with, is the parking variance going to really hurt everybody? Not as to whether or not we want a Subway. I mean, we have Carvel, which is a franchise. I believe it's a business that's been thriving for a while. It was raised in the work session about Starbucks. There were some technicalities as to who the actual landlord is and what the purview is. But Starbucks, I was thrilled as a member of this community for many years to see a AAA tenant decide to locate in Starbucks. As I just recently said, that popping up at the village board meeting to welcome our newest member, Mr. Ringwald, is that Hertz now is renting on Marbledale. Yes, it's that they're not coming before us, but I'm thrilled to see another AAA tenant, examining this village and saying, wow, what a wonderful village, and they're going to locate. They do their research. So, what I want the people here, the ones who have raised, that objection, is to understand that it's not our job to deny people because we like the company, we don't like the company. This is really a job for the village of, the village trustees. However, because this is such a major decision, I'm not inclined to making any rapid decisions on this. But before I go further, is there anyone from the audience that would like to come up and readdress any issues on this? Yes, sir, come on up to the microphone.
Hi, good evening. Nathan Jackman, 8 Gifford Street here in Tuckahoe. And I may not be understanding the exact working of this board, but in the issue of variance on the parking, is it a simple matter of just trusting that they say there's going to be no issues with parking? Trust us, we've done this study. Everyone's going to be walking by and just stop in for a quick sandwich. I can't believe that somewhere as cheap and as fast food as Subway is only going to have 1 or 2 people come by in a car. Are they actually going to have to produce these results for you to review as far as the feasibility of parking?
No, what we're going to be doing is just examining what's in front of us.
So essentially you're just going to take their word as far as there's going to be no issues. We're just going to have people walking by to get a sandwich.
Well, they're required to have, I believe it's 4, if top of my head, spaces, and they've accommodated with 2. So they're asking for a variance on the other 2. So we basically have to rely on, what our planner has said to us and our common knowledge of what's going on and fairness. Any decision we make is very important, meaning that if we decide to deny Subway because we feel they need more than 2 spaces, we can do that. But what the decision that we do becomes etched in stone, meaning that if someone else comes in the future and has a similar, and it's not a Subway, it's Zales Jewelers, maybe more what we call high end, and we decide that okay, we like Zales because it's a fancier name, and we're going to give them that parking variance. We denied Subway because they're, what some people said that it's viewed as a lower end, which I don't agree with, to be honest with you. But that's what they said. We would then be, conflicted in our decision and could be sued. The village could be sued for our conflicting decisions.
And I understand that. I'm not delving into the matter of Subway's terrible, I don't want a Subway. What I'm saying is that with the Zales, with the Subway, regardless of who it is, as you mentioned earlier in your discussion, the issue of parking on Main Street, the number of variances presented before this board, as well as the upcoming, very large apartment complex, as well as a possible hotel, as you're saying, you're etching this in stone. So if you're going to allow us, regardless of the level of the retailer, you're going to allow a retailer to come in and get an easy variance for 2 parking spots, which very well could work out, but it very well could be horrible. You could have 10 people trying to use the Subway at once. As you mentioned, high school kids coming by, they're not going to be walking. So it just seems a matter of, I don't care if it's Subway specifically, but just trusting that it's not going to be an issue seems to be a bit of a short-sighted approach. Thank you very much.
Any members want to address that?
Well, I would just say no decision's obviously been made. And for larger projects, we do require traffic studies, and we've done that for many, many projects, whether it's Crestwood, Glenmark, 100 Main Street. Many of them have hired planners, and so that's something we can consider as we consider, the size of the
As you said, you're
the
setting
applicant and
precedents.
everything.
That's
So,
more my concern. That if we have
every property is unique, I'll put it that way. Every use is unique.
Thank you.
Well, let me just keep you there, and I don't mean to belabor the point. This is a small village, and I've lived here 25 years, and the financial pressures on a small village are tremendous, especially with the tax structure that we have. So one of the things that I do, and I believe this board, is we really value the ability of the stores to survive and pay taxes, because if the stores, and every time I see an empty store, it just bothers me a lot, because I know that loss of tax revenue is just going to spill over and force increased taxes on the residents here, and we don't want that. And there's been, in the past, there's been many, lack of words, but people say, shop local, shop local, shop local. Even if it costs you more. If you buy a paintbrush from Alcower, it may cost you 30% more than Home Depot, but there's a reason. And it's to maintain the tax base here and keep our businesses alive and keep investors who want to buy a property here and say, okay, I'm going to buy a particular property and I want to be able to rent it and make $1, which is nothing wrong with that, and help everybody. So we keep that in concern, that maintaining a vibrant business, keeping the businesses alive. And when a company like Subway does the research, this isn't, in my opinion, I'm speaking of top man, this isn't, Sammy Jones coming there saying, yeah, I'm going to open up a deli here, and is it going to work, Sam? Well, I think so. This is Subway, and they've done their demographics. They have, a history of surviving. That to me gives a good level of comfort.
However, I doubt Subway's top priority is being concerned about our Main Street traffic.
Yeah, but what their concern is to stay alive and not become another empty store, and we could turn it down and hope that landlord can find someone else who doesn't need as much parking, and that landlord will survive.
I just want to be clear. We can't prevent people from coming, right? So we can only give variances. So, you know, they've secured a lease for 2 parking
I
spots.
understand that completely.
They
I'm
can just go.
Specifically talking about the parking spots.
So with the parking spots, you know, it'd be very easy for them to go next door and say, "Oh, we got a lease for 4 parking spots," and then they're never in front of this board. So I mean, just understand like where our limit is we could say, you know what, you don't get it, and then they just go next door and they sign a lease for 4 parking spots at the parking garage, and you know it's done. And so, I mean, so
Somewhere in the middle, though, where you can say, you know, try a little harder to come up with 4 spots and get back to us, or no?
yeah, and that may be something that we do over the next month. Absolutely.
I apologize, I'm new to this.
No, please.
It's okay. No.
No reason to apologize.
And Janice, I'm going to let you speak. I really am happy, and it's something that I've encouraged. I want the public to come here and discuss and understand more, because we understand as a board the decisions that we are making impact everybody, and we really want to get the feedback, and we also relish the opportunity to explain to the public who may not be, you know, this isn't their top priority, of understanding, you know, what we're faced with in the balancing act that we have to face with. And member Barondis, you want to say something?
I just wanted to reiterate what Ron said earlier with regard to the precedent setting, that if we withhold a variance because we're not happy with what may result from having the subway there, with regard to the parking and traffic, it's going to spill over into other applications on the other empty stores that we want filled. And I also am a great believer in when you have a successful operation, it creates much more excitement to be in the area, and it will help the other stores to attract more businesses once they see, for example, a greater foot traffic with people. You know, that's what we want in Tuckahoe. We want to create a walking village. So their ability to thrive is based on their practice of knowing that they survive on foot traffic. Otherwise, they have to be worried about surviving, because if they're going to build up traffic and need a lot of parking spots in order to be viable, they're not going to make it. And they do that kind of research, which is why we're comfortable with the idea that what they're asking for is not unreasonable. And again, moving forward, we have to be concerned about what that means for other applications, for other stores.
Understood, thank you.
Thanks for coming up. We really appreciate it. Is there anyone else that would like to speak about Subway? Okay, what I'm going to do now is, because this is a very big decision, it may seem like a small decision to some and a very large decision to others, but this board views this as an integral decision as to the future of Main Street. So I am going to ask for a motion to hold over the public hearing until next month. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're gonna hold this over till next month, and we're gonna do some more research. I wanna thank the applicant for coming. I wanna thank Lenny, who is an architect that we've become more and more familiar with and become more and more comfortable with. Len being a straight shooter and giving us a solid, explanation of everything, and I appreciate every time you come here, Len, so thanks.
Very much, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work of the board. It is a difficult decisions on each time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Sorry for going along on that one, but I really think that, and let me tell you, if we didn't have a short, we'd be here for. Okay. The next and only remaining application for tonight is 100 Main Street. So what I'm trying to understand here, council, is how do I do I rehear the new application or any changes and then reopen the public hearing?
What I would do, since there's been new plans submitted, I would hear the applicant and then just reopen the public hearing.
Okay, so I'm gonna call up the applicant for 100 Main, please, and bring, and
I would think so.
And please re-explain the application and any changes in a brief way.
Good
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I believe that, I was not here when you might have approved the minutes, but I believe you had continued the public hearing, so I don't think you have to reopen it. But you may want to
But-
talk
I'll have to
about
check.
that.
Yeah, no, I did, I made a motion last time to continue the public hearing, to not close it. So,
So, oh, that's, okay, so we continue it right after the,
yeah, but I need to motion to reopen it, or, no, it just,
it's continued.
okay, so it's continued, but after the application, then I'll just ask people to come up and speak. Okay, fine, all right, I just want to get that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Gertson. Les Marin, Marin and Mazzanti on behalf of MC Equities. This application relates to a proposed building at 100 Main Street. Mr. Murray, who's one of the principals of MC Equities, is here this evening. Tracy Murray had to leave. I also have Chris Crocco from Joseph Crocco's office, the architect. When we were here on February 4th, we made a complete presentation to your board. We gave a history of the recent approvals of the site, and we made a complete presentation for zoning variance and special permit standards. It's in your record. I don't intend to go through all of that today.
Agreed.
As a result of your last hearing was continued to this hearing, I had requested that if there were any comments or questions that they could be conveyed to me, and you had agreed to do that through Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams did contact me last week on March 4th, which was a month after your last meeting, and gave me some comments and inputs, and as a result, the applicant made some changes in the application that was conveyed in a letter to you last week, as well as revised plans. As a result of some discussion at the work session, there was a further revision that was suggested by Frank Fish's office, which my client wants to accept and incorporate into the project, so I'm going to include that when I run through this. The community room and the gym, which were on the proposed fourth floor of the proposed building, have been eliminated. That change lowers the FAR, so we need a lesser variance for the FAR, but more importantly, it lowers the front roof line and front facade of the building, and it removes all evidence of a of a fourth floor, except for the window for the stairway, which is in the front. That fourth floor is not a full fourth floor. It's basically the rear half and rear portion of the fourth floor. And at the easterly end of the building along Main Street by the Angelillo building, it's about 20 feet back. Along Terrace Place, it's about 40 feet back from Main Street, because the street does curve out slightly, and while this building is on the rear half of the building, so it will not be visible as you walk along or drive along Main Street there. And frankly, even as you drive down Main Street, it shouldn't be visible either. It creates a nice transition along the block now from the Angelillo building, segueing down to the blocks to the east of Terrace Place. Also, the ground floor and retail space, which is on the westerly side of the building, has been significantly made smaller. On our original plan, we had removed it, but at your planner, Frank Fish's suggestion, we actually like the idea, and I think this board and the planning board will like the idea also. We're going to decrease the size of that retail space. We're still going to have office, commercial space along Main Street there. There'll still be a door, there'll still be windows, but the space will be significantly narrower. In that space...
In the depth?
Correct.
Okay.
It'll still be the width from the Angelillo building over to the front door of the building, but it's not going to be nearly as deep. In fact, it's only going to be about 9 feet deep. As a result of decreasing that space, we were able to put in 4 more parking spaces. Those spaces will be tandem spaces, and I believe that addresses, so decreasing the office and retail space further lowers the FAR. It further lowers the required parking for the retail from 15 to 14 spaces now, and it provides room for these additional parking spaces, which will be configured in tandem. So previously, when we were here last, we were looking for 66 parking spaces were required, and we were providing 33. With the adjustment of that space, and there's now 54 spaces required, and we're providing 37. So there's an increase in the number of spaces.
What was it before?
66.
Our last application was for 66, the requirement, based on the number of units and the size of the retail space, was for 66 spaces. We were providing 33. Now the
now-
requirement is 54, and we're requiring 37.
36.
We're providing 30.
I said 37.
19 and 17 would be 30.
20, the spaces are not numbered. The space by the door is actually a parking space. The line there was merely for measurement. That's actually a parking space.
That's a parking space.
Yes. So additionally, the FAR.
I'm just going to stop you right there. I don't mean to, but I just, because it's so complex, I just want to stop you. So we're going from a 50% down to,
32%.
well, from 33 is half. And then 37 and 54 is what, 70%? 60%?
32%.
Okay, well, okay, so 32%. So instead of a 50% reduction, it's a 32% reduction. If
Oh, it's
top of our head,
50% variance.
variance to a 32%.
Right.
Okay, thanks, sorry for interrupting.
Now, the requested FAR, which we originally had been requesting 1.92, is now down to 1.83. And I remind you that in this building, the FAR is slightly higher because the village definition of FAR includes mechanical space, except if it's in the basement, because most buildings have mechanical space in the basement. This building doesn't have a basement, it only has a ground floor. So all the mechanical spaces, boilers, pumps, and things like that are all throughout the building. So that's actually included in the FAR. So it's really not usable space, but it's required for the building, and it's included in the FAR.
It's kind of like the same problem that we faced with that outside space. Meaning that it wasn't really livable space, but it still was counted.
Correct.
Right.
So the number and mix of units remains unchanged. We're still talking about 7 one-bedroom units, 5 two-bedroom units, 6 three-bedroom units, and 2 four-bedroom units for a total of 20 units. And I know that there is nothing in the zoning code about putting any requirements on number of bedrooms, but I know this board has been concerned in the past about number of bedrooms, so we're now talking about a total of 43 bedrooms, which is still unchanged from our prior submission. Chris Crocco from Joe Crocco, the architect's office, is here, and we'll quickly run through the changes in the plans after I'm finished. So the summary of the variances that we're seeking as amended is that we're looking to permit not less than 37 spaces. There will be shared parking, no reserve or assigned spaces. There'll be stickers or hang tags to ID residents and commercial tenants, except that the tandem spaces, the proposal is, and Frank Fish, the planner's office, has agreed that this is a good approach, will be that those tandem spots will be assigned to the 3 and 4 bedroom units, because it's more likely that those people will know who's in the spaces and what's going on. So
In tandem means shared.
correct, there's back-to-back spaces. So if it's people from the same apartment, so 2 3-bedrooms, there's 2 3-bedrooms. I'm sorry, there are 6 3-bedrooms and there are 2 4-bedrooms. So the 4 bedrooms will definitely get it, and 2 of the 3 bedrooms will be getting assigned to those spots. And we'll make sure that there are folks who actually have 2 cars as opposed to having the spaces wasted, because those will be actually just assigned. They'll be the only assigned spaces. Further, as recommended by the planning board, we'd request a variance to permit the parking space sizes to be reduced from 10 by 20 feet to 9 by 18 feet. However, some of those tandem spaces are going to be reduced to only 15 feet in length. But basically, when the same owners are in those spaces, or the same tenants are in those spaces, they can park bumper to bumper. So this plan shows the space at 15 feet, and Mr. Fish's office has looked at that, and that appears to be acceptable to both him and the traffic experts in his office. Another variance is to permit the 4th story, but in this case, it's only the rear half of the building, and it's not visible from the Main Street facade. As I mentioned before, permitting...
That's not a change.
Well, last time we were asking for a 4th story, but you were able, part of the 4th story with those community rooms had windows along the front facade. So it truly looked like a 4-story building.
Okay.
Now it no longer looks like a 4-story building because we've knocked off probably 8 or 10 feet of height on that side of the building.
Right.
Because it's only in the back now. The space that was in the front is gone.
So the application for the 4th floor is still there, but it's a difference in the aesthetics.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
And the fourth floor, the physical space of the fourth floor has been reduced by a couple of 100 feet, so it's set back from the road, and there's no windows along the front there.
Okay.
As we discussed last time, there is a slight side yard variance along Terrace, again, which was requested by the planning board, because they wanted to see a 6-foot sidewalk there. So we're requesting, and the normal sidewalk is, the sidewalk that's there presently is 3 feet. The planning board wanted the sidewalk wider, so we're asking for a 3-foot variance along there. Building coverage is 77%, and though it's questionable if a variance is needed because it's not mentioned in your code's text, we're not going to argue about that. It's only in the information boxes and the charts in the back. So we're, and that's apparently not a variance that was sought or approved in the past, but Mr. Williams has suggested obtaining it, so we're seeking that also. So that's it for the variances. We're asking for authority of this board to have a joint use of parking spaces for residential and retail use. Again, that's not a variance, but just an approval or an authorization by this board. And finally, we're asking for a special permit to permit, because in the RB zone, any use, you can have either business alone or business and residential. So we're seeking to have business and residential. So we're seeking to have
It requires a special
20,
permit?
it requires a special permit. So it's 20 residential units and not more than 2,642 square feet of retail space and not more than 2 retail units. And that, it requires a special unit. I went through all the standards before, and I'm not going to go through them.
Duly noted. We have that on the record.
Now, as for the parking is in line with past approvals and recommendations of the village's planners. The shared retail and residential permits the residents and retail. Again, we're going to have tags and no assigned spaces except for those tandem spots. We understand that this board has expressed some concerns about the parking, but this building will not lead to any dire parking circumstances or conditions this is fear. I have personally, and my client has personally observed a lot of empty spaces in the Tower Club building at 50 Columbus, in the Riverview building on just across the tracks. I've personally observed lots of spaces during the day and in the evening in the buildings along Main Street that run between Terrace and Jefferson, which is a building directly across the street, and in the buildings which run between Jefferson and Washington. I have some photos which I'd like to hand out quickly.
So, Mr. Maron, just for clarification, as far as the parking goes, in the change in this application is for the betterment of the parking, not for increased parking requests or variances.
Correct. It's actually a lesser variance because we're adding more spaces, and we've decreased the retail space, so less spaces are, we're adding more spaces, but less spaces are actually required under the code, so it's a lesser variance.
So we addressed the parking in the past, so we're not really dealing with an additional parking problem, so to speak, in this recent.
Well, I would say, we weren't happy with the parking last time.
But I'm saying that this
with the amount of
application
parking,
is.
and it moves in the right direction.
Correct, okay, that's what I'm trying to point out to the public, is that we're heading as Member Scalzo said, in the right direction on the parking.
There were concerns addressed, the board raised concerns about parking, so this is one way that we're addressing them.
Okay, great.
By looking at, so if you look at photo 1, that is the.
That's 120.
That's Terrace Place.
Yes. No, that is the building.
That's 120 Main, in the back.
That's the one that runs between, I don't know the number, but it's the one that
Right.
runs between Jefferson and Washington.
Yes.
This was a view 2 nights ago. Even this evening, there were maybe 3 or 4 more cars there. This lot has a lower level also, which was, as of this evening.
Of
was
residents.
that full. I don't know what they are. I'm just looking at cars that are in it.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
This building is only residential.
Right. This is just interesting that you have this photo.
What time was this taken?
This was done at about 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, last night.
Oh, geez, I would like the public to see this.
I have some larger ones that might be able to have Mr. Crocco hold up.
It's just interesting because this is something that we've been having a discussion, and one of the things that I admire about this actual particular property is how, instead of having retail down on the ground floor, they have an entrance to the apartments on the ground floor with an office, and then the back half of the property, maybe can we get the camera to zoom in on that? June, is she back there? There we go. That's all right. Okay, so.
Now, the next photo I have.
Wait, well, let's just deal with this one. So the public sees this photo, you're looking down an empty parking lot, and to the left is the building, and on the ground floor, they have parking underneath the residence. And so the front of this property is an entrance to the apartment, and that's on the right side of it, and on the left side is an office, utility office for, everything is above it, but it gives them additional parking underneath the property, in addition to what they have to the right, and they actually have additional parking underneath. But it's an interesting design where, to gain more spaces, this particular property utilizes some of the space which theoretically could have been commercial or residential. Instead, it's been given up for parking. Okay, Mr. Maron, I'm sorry.
Now, photo that's noted as number 2 on the top, also taken at 9 p.m. Last night, is the building that is in between Terrace Place, which is across the street from this building, and Jefferson. And this is looking from the Jefferson entrance to that parking. Again, the lot's mostly empty. That's at about 9 o'clock at night. I frankly have been there during the day when it's been mostly empty. This evening when I walked by, there were only about 4 or 5 empty spots. There were a lot more cars there. Might have been a dinner crowd at the quarry, but that lot also wasn't terribly used. And these are in the immediate vicinity. Photo number 3 on the top is a view down Garfield Place today.
Terrace Place.
Down Terrace Place from Garfield, where there are 2 cars parked along the street there this afternoon. There are lots of spaces, and I realize this may go up and down on different days. We just picked, the last minute I just suggested Mr. Murray, he take some photos, which is why we have the excellent quality of these photos.
Okay.
And then the next shot, number 4, is actually going down, and you can see there are no more cars there. In the very edge is that lower car is still there. There are no more cars parked along Terrace. The last photo, number 5, was taken on Tuesday night, and there are 2 cars parked along Terrace, and it's a little hard to tell from this, but on the computer screen when I saw it, it looked as if the second car down was the same Nissan that was parked, that was shown in photo number 3. So it's
Okay.
probably a resident that
Okay.
has resident parking along there.
Okay. Let me just ask a question. I know we don't have it up for the public. So, we're looking down Terrace. The proposed property would be at the bottom of the hill on the left, correct? And so what we're looking at here on the right is the other property that member Scalzo has.
You don't have copies of these?
Okay, since it's something that you've been concerned with, this is what you're talking about in the blending of the appearance of the new property's 4th floor with this one. Would I be correct in saying that? In the height?
Yeah.
Right here, is what I'm talking about.
That one, right.
Right, okay, all right, just for our own edification, there's been multiple discussions of this and trying not to, if we were to go with a 4th floor variance, Member Scalzo's, really stressed a lot of concern, so we have a good photograph of that property. We also, interesting enough, have showing the height of the hotel, which is only a 3-story building, but with that very high roof, clearly the hotel, has a lot of height there. It's not as though the height variance or the 4th floor variance that is being requested is just so out of the norm of what's there compared, in the hotel, the Angelillo building, which is also 4 stories, and the building on the corner of Cameron, which has Ferry's Deli in it, is also 4 floors. So in consistency with the surrounding, to me, seeing this photo of the hotel shows that these type of overall heights are not uncommon in the area and not a stick out like a sore thumb, to use a phrase. But anyway.
Right, and I might also add that even with the fourth floor, we're still below the maximum height requirement of the zoning code. We're not asking for a height variance, we're asking for a number of stories variance.
It's interesting that you raise that because that is something that we've been funny faced with. We have a village that has a height that allows almost a fourth floor, but then requires a variance for a fourth floor. It's a conflicting situation because who's going to build a building 3 floors that is 40 feet or something, which is what the law is.
Or we could have done 12-foot ceilings on 3 floors, and still, if we only wanted to do 3 floors and up to that height, it would have looked the same.
Now, who wants 12 foot ceiling? I mean, 9 foot's are nice, but 12. Anyway, okay.
I'm actually almost done. So it's respectfully submitted that the standards for granting the requested variances detailed by me at your February meeting have been met in all respects, and the variances should be granted. Further, the reduction in FAR number of required parking spaces and the increase in the number of parking spaces that we're providing decreases the substantiality of those requested variances. So if it wasn't substantial before, it's even less substantial now. This is not a first-time look at the site by the Tuckahoe Zoning Board. The zoning board had previously granted variances and special permits for 2 different proposed buildings at this site. I'd respectfully submit that there's been no material changed facts or circumstances that would provide a basis for reaching a different determination than that which can reasonably and rationally be supporting these approvals. I'd welcome any questions from the board or the public, either now or after Chris does his presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask unless the board members have extremely.
I just have one basic question, Mr. Maron. What is the point of your 5 photos here? Is it to show that there is more parking in the area than?
No, it's to show there were some concerns raised by the board that there wasn't enough parking being provided and that we were asking for a variance that was too large. So we went around and we did this really informal survey
you're trying to
of
show
the
us
surrounding buildings. If you'd let me finish, please. We're showing photos of the surrounding buildings to show that it doesn't appear to be a parking problem in those buildings. I don't know why there would be one in this. So we're showing you some of the surrounding buildings.
So as you know, we're not a legislative board. Why are you bringing that to us? Why wouldn't you bring this to the Board of Trustees? You say the rules in the village should be changed. You don't need that many parking spaces.
I didn't
That's
say
my
that.
point.
I didn't say that.
Then why are you showing these?
We're allowed to grant a variance to the zoning board rules, or the zoning code rules, yeah.
I know that, but I'm missing the point, I'm sorry, of why you're showing these photos that there's more, or there's ample parking in the area.
Because this board certain members of the board had expressed a concern with granting a parking variance for this project because they didn't think there was enough parking. And what we're saying is similar projects right next door have a lot of empty spaces in them, and we anticipate that may happen here. We're not making any promises, but we're showing you that there are other projects in the village that have right in the immediate vicinity across the street that appear to have plenty of ample parking, and the parking is not being 100% utilized at all times.
Member Barondess, you want to ask?
To that point, you also have to understand that, are you privy to what their parking allowance and variances were for that? Maybe they have more than enough parking for the number of apartments they have. And that may be the reason why you see, ample parking there. They may not require the kind of variance that you're asking for here. So it's not really apples and apples here. I understand the point you're trying to make, but you really have to know how many spots they have per apartment
And what
to
I'm
make
saying
that
is
relevant.
it doesn't matter how many spots they have, are those spots being used? And, and your plan, BFG are probably among the more preeminent planners in the area. They're very familiar with stops by railroads, and they've said that you don't need 2 spaces per unit when you're this close to a train station. And we're making that suggestion to you, and I think these photos sort of point that out. And I haven't had a chance to check the records, but I don't think any of these buildings had variances. And I may be wrong, and we'll have a chance to
Well,
check
what I'm
that.
saying
But
is
it
that
doesn't
that's-
matter, because I'm
no.
talking about what the utilization is. Why
But
should they
you're-
build it if
you're
it's not being?
Well, let me just say that utilization is, what engineers love to talk about, mathematical utilization. And if you get to utilization 1, that's perfect. That's harmony. That's perfect. So if you need 57 spots and 56 are used, then you wasted energy. Then it's then you have 1 too many. You wasted money. And quite honestly, you know, that is not what we're trying to maximize. You know, there's more than just the, you know, the perfect utilization of every spot every day. You know, it's how long does it take you to look for the spot. It's having the peace of mind to know that you could come home. It's having a spot for your babysitter and for your grandparents to come by. There's a lot more than just utilization. You know, having more parking actually increases rent. Having, you know, so there's, you know, we consider the totality of everything, the neighborhood too. If you miss on the low end of parking, then you substantially, you know, harm the rest of the community. If you miss on the high end, then you can rent it out to train commuters. You cost a little money to build extra parking, but you can get it back by renting it out to other people. So
But that's not the point. The point
the
is.
point is, I mean, you try and find a good equilibrium, but, you know, there's a balance between the community and the applicant.
But the point is, and I think this is key, is that there has been a transition going on in the village, in life in itself. And as BFJ has pointed out to us in the past, that municipalities are changing their zoning, called railroad zoning, because the experience has been that the high level of required parking that has been adhered to has turned out not to be as necessary as one might think. And in casual conversations in the past, and it's something that I like to do, in speaking to developers, and I've spoken to this developer years ago about this particular, and he has said to me that my spaces are empty, and that everything that was required by the zoning and the zoning board of appeals turned out that it wasn't as necessary as everyone would think. This goes to the transition that we've been talking about, you know, what came up at the Crestwood project. So while we would all love to be 110%, you know, sure and having all these parking spaces, somehow we might be setting the bar too high. And I think that's kind of what Mr. Marin is going to, if I would be.
Correct. I mean, I don't, you could, you can, I'm giving it to you for information purposes. You can say with it, you can think with it what you may reasonably want. And just as an additional point, when the zoning board and the planning board grant approvals for projects similar to this, they normally say the spaces can only be used by the tenants or the occupants of that building. They don't allow outside renting, and if someone wanted to do that, they should be coming back to this board and the planning board for some sort of variance. So
I agree.
if there's overbuilding, they really should be they can come back to either this board or the planning board and say, look, we have a little extra space, we'd like to rent it, because as it stands now, normally with the approvals, they can't.
Remember
So I'm just saying,
Palladino?
like what you said, it's a balancing. It's just something to consider.
Remember Palladino was like something?
What it seems to come down to is that, in other words, you're saying is our zoning code is antiquated. Well, if that's what the case is, it's not or we're just constantly granting very high-end, high percentage variances. Maybe it should be changed, and that's a matter of with the Board of Trustees again.
That's true. And the problem with that is that is something that is an evolving issue that just, you know, it's like dog years. It takes years to determine it. And in a small village like we have, with only so many, you know, empty properties, these properties come to us right away. And, you know, for instance, I'll give you an example. We, you know, for whatever reason, and part of it's my fault, you know, we haven't been able to meet with the village board to make recommendations based on our experience as to any changes that need to be made. It's something that we need to do, but it's difficult to say this is absolutely what should be done. And it's something that we're learning over, and it's something that we need to take into consideration, because there are other properties on Main Street and other busy roads that in the future may be, you know, look to be ripped down, developed, or changed in some way. And, you know, the knowledge that we are gaining in the experience of what's happening on what comes before us is something that is going to have to play to the future. And, you know, but this is something, and, you know, I think that Revlon also is another one that we can learn from as far as making our future decisions, to try and find that balance. Because we want properties developed, we want developers to succeed, and not have, you know, repossessions or developers go bankrupt because they you know, overshot as to what they could do, and, you know, thought they could make it and they couldn't. So we want success. But let's try and, is there anything anyone else wants to say? Or can we hear
If I
from
could
Mr.
just speak for 1 sec? I know
Yes.
Trustee Alfasi of the Village Board is forming a committee to look at our zoning code to see, if it's up to date and
Yes.
what could be changed. So there will
He's
be
a
a
former
committee.
zoning board member.
He is a former zoning board member, so he'll be forming that committee, and I'm sure he's going to be looking to this board for input.
Okay, I'd like to, unless anyone else, I'd like to get Mr. Crocco up before the clock just runs on us. Do whatever you want. Just give us the short version of the changes.
Chris Crocco, Joseph Crocco Architects. I'm just going to run through some of the stuff that Les pointed out, the changes that we had made. Over here in this area on the ground level, we had a office space.
June, can we get the camera on this, please? Eugene? It's important for the residents to see what Mr. Crocco is referring to. Sorry.
I don't think there's anybody in there.
I don't think anybody's in there.
There you go.
All right, there you go. A little bit wider, just a touch wider. Okay,
This is going
We'll work with it.
okay.
In this area, originally it was office space. We've eliminated it, decreasing our FAR, and we've then added 4 more spaces, which are tandem. And we're also going to be adding the suggestion from Mr. Fish's office that we are going to put a wall roughly 9 feet in, and we are going to make a small office area.
Retail, well,
Yeah, office retail, and we're going to maintain that storefront and maintain that look.
that's the future.
Which you can see outlined in blue is what we would be adding.
Okay. Okay. Got it?
So,
We got it.
you got it?
All right.
Sorry.
Thought it was me.
Yeah, right? Sounded like the building was falling down.
Second and third floor remaining unchanged. The fourth floor, we have.
This is the 4th floor we're
This
looking
is
at
the
now.
fourth floor we were looking at right now.
Okay.
Originally in this area, we had a gym and a community room.
Okay,
We have removed the community room, further decreasing our FAR. The only thing we changed was we added this little area right. Well, the stairwell was here, but we just ran the wall down to here. Make note of this area as I go to the elevation. As you can see, the elevation has changed somewhat. Originally, there was a bigger peak here that had a window in it, and there was also the 4th floor line across here with a shed dormer with more windows. That has all been eliminated because that was the community room and the gym. We had a peak here. We have raised this a little. We've come up with this 4-sided dormer, and we've added this window for the stairwell and what's behind it.
that's why it's so high, because of the stairs.
And yeah, the stairs, they need a little more room to go up
Okay,
because we have the parapet and everything else.
all right.
Those are really the changes to the front elevation. This line right here represents the 4th floor in the rear of the building. That's why it's so light. It's important to note, though, that
Is it visible?
that's what I'm getting to.
I'm
It's
sorry.
important to note that wherever you're standing on Main Street, nobody will be able to see it because nobody can get further enough back from the building to see over this front roof and see this structure behind it.
Aside from the stairway, the general height, can you give us that height, the general height, the average height?
Right here?
No, lower.
Here?
No, height.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right there.
right there.
Right here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We are at,
Rough number.
I want to say 35 feet.
Okay. Any questions?
Can you show the perspective from Terrace Place?
Sure. This is an elevation if you were standing on Terrace Place and looking directly at the building.
Mhm.
Back here, farther back, this is Main, and if you're standing in front, this is Terrace. Further back, roughly from this point, 45 feet is where the fourth story structure starts. That's where we have this area right here. Oh, sorry. That's why we have this area here with the dormers. And this is what makes up the fourth floor. And if you come around back, because it's raised up here, it only appears to be a 3-story building.
Okay, any questions from the board members for the architect? None? Okay, I'm gonna make a request of Mr. Maron. It's a point of personal privilege. I just would like, if it's okay with Mr. Maron, for Mr. Murray to come to the microphone. He stepped out. He was there 2 seconds ago. I just saw him. Before.
You want to go ahead?
Oh, he's gone. All right. Okay, fine. All right. So there's nothing that anyone has a question for the architect, correct? All right. So the public hearing is still open. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to ask for anyone from the public that wants to come up and speak, ask questions or anything about 100 Main to come up. Anyone? Yes, sir. Please come on up, speak, state your name and address for the record.
Mike Brown, I live at 4 Henry Street in Tuckahoe.
Okay.
It's great. Well, here's the photos that the gentleman took, and they're great at 9 o'clock at night, but I wish he took these photographs at 9 o'clock in the morning because the traffic is horrendous.
That's the back of a building.
I understand that. I understand that. But I think that the impact that this is going to have on traffic at 9 o'clock
In the morning.
And without this project down the street being finished, I think there's going to be a major impact. Major impact. And what David said in regards to that the parking, I think we should set the bar high if you are going to allow this amount of units. I mean, you're adding this a multiple dwelling here, and in regards to a 4-bedroom unit, you're definitely going to have 2 cars per, without a doubt. 3-bedroom unit, the same thing as well. So why put the stress on the people that live on the side streets and the people that want to come and visit the village in lieu of having their cars parked there? Also, not only is this going to have an impact on traffic, but it's going to have an impact on the school system as well. 4-bedroom units, I don't know, that built, what's the multiple that the occupancy on a 4-bedroom unit?
You mean in multiple, that would be something for Mr. Fish to answer.
Well-
If Frank Fish is more, our planner.
What is the multiple that the occupancy on a 4-bedroom unit?
Basically, we've given the board a memo on this from, the sort of Bible in this field is somebody called Rutgers University's Center for Urban Policy. They do surveys across the country, and they've done surveys in this area. Basically, the answer to your question is one public school child will be generated on average from a 4-bedroom unit, right?
I find that hard to believe.
By the way, we have, I know, and
3-bedroom unit homes that have 2, 3 kids that are going.
by the way, I think I can show,
This is just going to be a revolving door as well.
I'm
Okay,
very happy,
let's just-
I don't mean to get in a debate with you, I'm very happy to give you, if you would like, all of these statistics from Rutgers.
Okay.
We also have them from developments of about 20 properties in Westchester County. I realize it's hard to believe, but those are the statistics.
Very hard to believe.
By the way, for a studio, which you can understand has no public school children, a 1-bedroom has very, very few. We estimate that there'll be, I believe our estimate was, I don't have the memo in front of me, probably about a half dozen students from this development. From the 3-bedroom, from all of the units, the 20 units, generate about 5 to 6 public school children.
And the amount of units in the building is going to be?
20 units.
So 1 kid for every 3 units.
That's correct. The normal, by the way, just so you know again, it is really the single-family homes of any town or village that generate the most public school children. So this, buildings particularly like this, near a train station, which we call a transit-oriented development, they attract, they attract commuters for one thing, but they attract also households that, in general, have fewer public school children than a single-family home. So, and those are the statistics across the Northeast. They're not just our statistics. They're from Rutgers, who has done the largest single studies of the Northeast of this. And I can give you all the statistics. By the way, I don't know if you're here for the other. This has been an issue throughout the village for the last at least half dozen years. And we've, as a result of it, gone out and acquired a lot of data for buildings around this vicinity. And we can give you both the parking ratios for them and the public school students that have been generated. So we're relatively confident of these numbers. I know, by the way, I can understand your reaction because you think that, hey, a single-family house generates 2 or 3 children. Actually, it's closer to 1.5. And we can give you all those statistics, but apartments, which these would be, in general, have far fewer public school
Okay,
children in them.
what I'd like to do, here's how I would like to handle this. What I would like to do, instead of addressing individually each questioner now as yourself, what I'm going to ask to do is for you to come up, state your concerns to us so that we digest them, and would like to hear other people's concerns. We will then address them, and then we'll have another comeback to the microphone so that you can address ours, because if we go one by one, we could end up here all night. So we'd just like to hear everyone's concerns about the project. We'll address them, and then anyone who has a follow-up question will be happily come back to the microphone.
One question to follow up on, I'm sorry, the gentleman.
Frank.
Does that count, those stats, is that for a rental property as well as a co-op, a condo? Is that the same stats?
There are some very slight differences between a condo and a rental. By the way, just so you know, and this is available, and I can give Bill Williams many more copies of this. We've given the board a memo dated February 18th, both on public school generation and parking generation, different types of bedroom sizes, cited all the sources for the board. Because we wanted the board, it's our job to provide the board with, not just our data, but data that have been done by universities in this area. And you're welcome to this data. So it's all available. It's a memo dated February 18th to the board. So again, Bill, I can make more copies for Bill.
Okay, anyone else would like to come up and pose questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Lisa Brown from 4 Henry Street.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you? I have a question. My concern is when they started the project and it's 3 and 4 bedroom units, there's a certain price tag that goes along with it, especially when you're near the train station. Are they still expecting those same rental income coming in? And what happens if they don't get that rental? What happens to those units? Do they become less expensive? Are there going to be any Section 8, any subsidized units with those?
Well, I don't know how I can answer that question, actually.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's a real estate question.
Janice.
Does real estate?
That's a market question. And based on what I'm seeing in our market, we have a very, very healthy and vigorous rental market here. There are, that's why people are coming in and building rental units, which are in high demand. And the rents that we're seeing are really substantial, and the plan is to build a beautiful and luxurious development. And being close to the train, looking at the success of the buildings in the Tuckahoe area near the train station and what they've sold for, and they're fully occupied. So
Well, selling and renting, if I'm buying something, that's a little different because you're buying it and you're owning it. But if you're renting, you're going to think twice about spending, I don't know, what would a 4-unit bedroom go for? Maybe $3,500 a month? I don't know.
Well, I think it all depends on what your expectations are in terms of what's being provided for you in the building. So there are different price points, different sets of expectations. One of the reasons we're very excited about this project is that it's going to be very high-end, and there is demand. There are a lot of people who want to rent and not own right now. And there are people who are spending a great deal of money to be in beautiful apartments, walking distance to the train. The demand is there.
And is that the experience that you found so far with the other units? Or have there been other four-bedroom units that are rental in Tuckahoe?
I
I'm just
I
asking.
live in a townhouse development where there are 3, and they're large. They're 2,200 square feet, and they are fully occupied, and the rents are above $5,000 a month. So the demand is there, and the supply is still not at peak yet. So I don't think people would be looking to invest the way they are right now if they hadn't done their proper market studies to support the level of rent they need to sustain their investment.
I understand that, but I'm also concerned because we have those other units that are going up on Midland Avenue. So now you have many units that are going to be available. Are those even rented yet? Probably not, right? I mean, are they?
Those are mostly one bedroom and a few two bedroom.
Product,
So there's not 3-bedroom, 4-bedrooms there, which is one reason that, I think it's one positive of the project is that there's a balance
Right.
in the type of units they have.
I wanna just get all the questions out.
Oh, I
so that we don't end up just, I wanna
I
try
just
and.
have one more. And what was the impact with the school system? How many kids do they expect going?
Well, as I said, we, Frank just said,
Again, I can give you these memos. I'll just make copies for Bill. The actual projection we made based on Rutgers was 6 to 7 public school children.
we're gonna get into this, Lisa, in depth. So I'm not gonna, just brush you off or anything. I wanna get everybody's questions so that we can kinda get a handle, and we're gonna address everything, and then anybody who has a second follow-up question will be allowed to come to the microphone.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, anybody else would like to come up? Yes, sir? You wanna-
Give it another shot here. Nathan Jackman, 8 Gifford Street. Again, this may be more due to my ignorance of the process and.
Nothing is ignorant, Nathan. This is all learning for all of us, even us on this board. We're learning every day.
So one of the things I find kind of odd is that essentially this individual has a certain property they want to build a glorious new building on, make tons of cash. You bring an architect in, and then you essentially knowingly overbuild units for the number of parking spaces you have.
You mean over request?
Well, then essentially you come back afterwards and say, oh, by the way, I would like to have a variance because I've intentionally designed this building to have fewer parking spaces than required by law. We're not talking about a subway that's fitting into a small building and has to make use of parking surrounding. We're talking about a brand new building that's built intentionally underneath what's required by law.
Correct.
Either you can look at it as they've tried to cram way too many units into a space that can't handle it according to our regulations, or, truly this commuter sort of zoning change idea could take place. But as you said, the purview of the board is not to change the zoning laws. It's to rule based on the current laws. And
Right.
this seems like intentionally under-designing for what they know to be true.
Over-designing.
Over.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll address that.
Thank you. And in addition, regarding the study that he brought up regarding Rutgers, I would be interested to hear if that took into account the very high income level you're probably going to be seeing if these properties are truly luxury condos. You're talking about very high income levels, which
When you say income, you talk about personal income or income?
personal income. So an individual who's buying a 4-bedroom apartment
Or renting.
a 4-bedroom apartment at the luxury level that she's noted is going to have a very large income, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if that's taken into account with the studies that he's referring.
What do you mean taking into account?
So in other words, the studies he's referring to could possibly just be using an average income level, average neighborhood, and I don't know. I have no idea the
Okay,
level.
it's a fair question. Just want to make sure we understand the
I
question.
just want to make sure it represents the socioeconomic status of people that will be moving into these buildings.
Okay.
And then the last question is whether or not, which we used to see in Boston where I lived, that partway through the project, if they're not getting the uptake that they need for these rental units, or for example, the larger property down the street is not getting the same uptake, whether they're allowed to come back and rephrase and go, well, now we're going to build kind of lower end units. Now we're going to kind of, we used to get that quite a bit there. So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, great. Anybody else? Yes, sir, come on up.
Anthony Fiore, Midland Place, Tuckahoe. I just want to make sure this is a traffic issue. That little piece of terrace is going to be a two-way, right?
Half of it, I believe.
Half of it, so that's going to board the village board.
That's correct, I believe it. whatever.
Okay. Now going west, now people can start making a left going into it. since it's going to be a two-way?
If you're heading west.
West.
Yes.
Okay. And is that going during the morning and during the morning hours?
Yes.
Isn't that going to affect traffic, like people waiting to sit there? Then people go by, just making that left into it?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, but it's mostly in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if people wait, some people might go around Van Dusen and go back out the other way.
Around
The-
Cameron, you mean?
Right, Cameron.
Yes.
Go around that way.
Yes.
Otherwise, okay, that's my other concern from there too.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Yeah.
That's it?
Yep.
All right, anybody else?
Thank you all very much for being here on such a late night. We really appreciate you taking the time to hear all of the things that we're asking.
Yes, sir.
My name is John Lambert. I live at 43 Terrace Place, the property that abuts this 100 Main Street. And my comment has been and will continue to be a concern about parking. You know, I see this image in front of me of the lots of parking in this zone, and I understand that. And I saw Mr. Marin's photographs of the Terrace Place, which is where I park. You know, currently the setup of the situation is I live in a one-family house that does not have a driveway.
Yet.
And yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's the other point. But my concern is, you know, where does my family park? In order for Terrace to become to become two-way for part of it, we need to be removing spots. I don't know how many, 2 or 3, I believe, is the number that has been talked about. And as those photographs that Mr. Marin had earlier, I actually was just looking at video of the exact same stretch of parking at about 6 o'clock in the evening, in which there's no parking for any car. My car happens to be there. There happens to be one spot, so I can park my car there, and that's great. So that's my major concern, is parking. I mean, I think traffic is an issue potentially, but parking has really been my concern. If there were a way for me to have an off-street parking spot, that would be great. It's a tough sell. Mr. Murray and I have talked a little bit about that. As I said before, he and I have been in regular communication, and that he's been really great about.
Good.
So I appreciate that. But again, my main concern is parking, and how does my family fare when there isn't enough parking on the street for my family as it is, and I can't imagine it's going to improve with the addition of 20 units.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Ms. Angelillo?
Victoria Angelillo, Main Street. I happen to agree with most of the people, all the people that talk about parking, but I already been at the work sessions, and I know you're working hard at that. So I appreciate that. As the only person that I don't know is the gentleman on the end, who might not be aware of this project by different developers, has been going on for at least 8 years. The reason I'm bringing this up to the board right now is my concern is that retail space. I've looked at the master plan. I have a copy of the master plan, and when it was put into place, the whole idea was that you have continuation of retail going up Main Street. And yes, I do have 4 stores there. And if you just, like, right at my block right now, it ends, my stores, that's it. And then there's no reason to go further. Then you have to go a little further and you have some more restaurants and a beauty salon. So my thought is, if you can keep it going, that'll keep the people shopping. And I do have people there struggling. So traffic is great, but when I first came to this meeting tonight, the plans have totally changed. And there was no retail on my side. And then you're letting them have retail. So he was reducing that retail a lot. Mr. Fish came in with another plan, and I was just told that about 10 minutes before we came in here, or 5 minutes. And I was on the phone with my husband, and we decided to make sure you're aware we're not happy. and we need some time to get the plans, the new plans, because we were never given the intermediate plans, and have somebody look at them. Because you're talking about surviving, businesses surviving. I need to survive too, and I don't want to keep going back to a certiorari and asking for my taxes to be reduced. I need the village to look at us also, and not just the new developer who wants
Right.
to come in and make money.
Right, but when you say you have to survive, you're talking about your retail.
Right, but that's me surviving too.
But I'm just
I
trying
mean,
to
I
understand.
pay the taxes here.
What I'm trying to understand is.
Yes,
Your
the
residential is not a major concern of yours.
My
I'm-
residential is a concern over the parking, if you want to bring that up, but I didn't
but-
want to bring it up.
but
They've done that.
When you say you need to survive, we're not talking about you
Okay.
personally. We're talking about your building, and there are two aspects of your building. There's a residential and a commercial retail, correct?
Correct.
So when you
I've
say
been
you-
surviving, if my tenants can't park a car because I don't
Okay,
have parking,
but-
that's one. And if retail, if I can't rent the stores.
Right.
Because there's no traffic going by or not.
Well, there's plenty
not
of traffic.
street- Not
You
street
mean
traffic.
foot traffic.
Right, something to bring it in. As you said, Subway's
Right.
here for a reason.
Okay, so you think that, what is greater to your foot traffic? Would it be?
I don't have the answers for you. I
But
will
I'm
go
just-
and
just-
hire somebody to
but,
do a
just-
plan for
but
myself. I don't have it.
But does the foot traffic increase because of a store or because of other people living there?
I think both comes into play.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm not a
I
realist,
disagree
so-
with that, but anyway.
Well,
Melba,
it makes
Melba,
sense.
Melba, I'm sorry, Melba, are you leaving? I was gonna ask you to come up and speak if you had a minute. I'm sorry it's going on so late. Okay.
No, she was on the other board.
I know, but I thought she was here, maybe she could add something, I'm sorry. Okay.
Ms.
All right, thanks.
Galliano's a member of the planning board, so she does not want to address this board on that issue.
I
knew
was.
she was one of the boards.
But I would value her opinion if she wanted to interject. But anyway, okay.
It's okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So
If I understood it, I wouldn't be.
but you understand my question to you, and I'm going to open this up to the other members here, is what really, something that is really, and I hate to keep blabbering on, but survival of the stores is something that is very important to me,
Okay,
as opposed to in agreement with the schools. But survival of the stores, we want to see our stores vibrant and healthy.
Survival of those stores is foot traffic,
Yes.
is parking. If they
Yes.
can't have people come and park on the
Right.
street to go
Okay,
into the,
Right. People
not
stopping.
office,
Right.
the new store,
Right.
right?
Right.
What's she gonna do?
Right.
She's gonna close up.
But so-
Because there's no foot traffic right now, and there won't be when the buildings are
But
being
if the
built.
building's there, people will come out of that new building and walk theoretically to the train station.
We hope, I mean,
That's where most likely it's gonna, and they will be walking past your stores. Yes,
and
okay.
that's.
And that's what I want to
Still
have
need the
happen.
Retail to keep going up the street. and
Okay.
That's what the planning board
We can
always
disagree
said.
on that, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to come up? Ms. Baker, I think it is to say. No? Are you sure? You're a longtime resident here. I thought maybe, no, nothing? Okay. All right, let's try and deal with it. Before I say anything, any board members like to address the various items that were raised by the questions? Member Palladino first?
Yep, for sure. I'd like to address two things. Number one, it was brought up by a number of the people that came up to talk, okay? Mainly which is the design or over-design or whatever. Most of the areas in the village is 3 floors, okay? And practically everything that's coming in, they're requesting 4 floors. When they request 4 floors, it gives additional apartments and everything, which puts a great stress on the parking variances and everything that are required because of all the additional apartments and everything else like that, okay? Secondly, okay, and I'm going to ask Gary to make sure I'm saying the right thing on this here, is with regard to the schools. We are reminded, am I correct, Gary, with regard to the schools, we're not supposed to take that into consideration, the effect that the building has on the school?
Correct. What you should be doing is applying your five-prong test. I'm going to keep saying that every time you ask me what you should be doing to this and that.
I'm not saying whether I agree with it or not, but, you know, that's what we're reminded of. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Scalzo?
Just a brief comment. Mr. Fiore brought up a question about the traffic. And just so the public is aware, that traffic decisions are made by the Board of Trustees in consultation with the police department. So they will determine whether Terrace Place should be two-way or not, should this building be built. And so there's a possibility that it stays one way and you make everyone loop around. But that's at the police department working with the Board of Trustees. Just
May I interject there? Just so you know, David, we have presented this in the past to the trustees and to the police chief. So in terms of traffic and how the road would work, I think you may have been, we walked the area with the chief and with some of the trustees. I know there's some new trustees now since we did that, but the trustees are generally aware of the traffic pattern that's proposed here.
Member Brandes?
I had just one question. Forgive me, your name again? Yes, Lisa. You had mentioned that you have tenants in your building and that you're having difficulty, oh, no.
No.
Vicky.
This is Vicky.
That some of your tenants are having difficulty finding places to park. So I guess that's one of the things that I caught when she spoke.
Is a resident, you mean, of the apartment?
Yeah. So we already have a situation where people who are already living there are having great difficulty finding places to park, which then puts a strain on her ability to easily rent out these apartments if there's a hardship.
Ms. Angelo, can you come to the microphone, please?
Did I hear you correctly?
You did hear me. You did hear me correctly, and I'm just trying to. There's a lot of issues. When I bought the building, we used to have parking in front of the building on the hill. And somehow, the village decided to take at least 2 of those spots away because of the fire engines coming down and having to make a turn. So the gentleman behind me, who's worried about Terrace Place, they're losing them every time we turn around. So maybe one of my tenants was over on Terrace Place. Well, they're not going to be on Terrace Place. I do know.
I mean parking on Terrace Place?
Correct. We're talking about parking now, and that's what
Okay.
I'm talking about. I didn't bring it up for me, per se, but it is an issue. I have family that lives in the village still, and there are people that are here parking down on Circuit, parking over where Mr. Gallo lives. There is a big issue in this village. So I am in agreement. I cannot conceive that a 4-bedroom apartment is only going to have 1 car. And then I even look at it, if you're in that high-end bracket, you probably have 2 cars for the wife and maybe a sports car and another car for the husband. You get 4 cars because money's not an issue. But the village has a problem with parking, and I think you know it. We also have a parking problem for the commercial spaces. My tenants can't park. They have to feed a meter, or if they park on the hill, they have to move. We do have a big issue with that. So, and I also said the retail.
Okay, 2 questions. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to answer it.
Thanks.
I'm total curiosity. What's your occupancy rate now, percentage-wise?
In my stores?
No, resident. 100% rented, or you have apartments empty?
My apartments are rented.
Okay, great. Next question. How do you know where I live? I'm just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Okay, I'm just kidding, just kidding.
You really want me to answer that?
No, I know the answer to it, so I'm just
Well, you
joking.
asked me in front of everybody. He lives next door to my sister-in-law.
Yeah, she has her relatives like next to her. So I'm just.
So then you know about the parking problem.
Well, believe me, it's.
Okay,
yes.
you asked the question. Now can I go sit down unless
Yes,
you have another question?
You're free to sit down. Member Ringwald, any questions?
I have a question now that I learned that if Terrace Place, if part of it is, turned 2 ways and then there's 2 more spots eliminated, does that add to this, what is the building is proposing 37 spaces when it needs 54. So that's what, 17 shy? Is it now become 19 shy because 2 more disappear on Terrace?
No, those parking that they would be losing is off-site, so they're not counted towards the variances that they would need.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Okay, great. All right. I think one thing that everyone needs to keep in mind is what's called as of right, meaning that currently the parking situation is what it is, and there's still a lot of cars on the street now, and if something's built there, there's going to be more cars on the street, driving up the street, whatever. But the point is that there is something called as of right, which any owner of this property has the right to build the property and increase the amount of traffic. It's just a fact that it's their property, they're allowed to build it. They're coming to us for a variance for more than that, but one needs to keep in mind when evaluating it that there's going to be an increase in parking on this property, no matter what. What we are trying to do is work with the applicant to have the least amount of impact as possible. Trading off. One of the things we did in Crestwood was we had an as of right there of 15, and these are rough numbers, 15 3-bedroom units, 45 bedrooms, and those would have generated X amount of cars and children in the school district. And the trade-off that we came, and it was actually the applicant's idea, after doing the research on the what's called railroad zoning, is that to do the same amount of bedrooms, but doing with 1-bedroom, roughly 1-bedroom units, based on the need of people who are currently living in Manhattan, looking for larger apartments for less rent, and still being able to live a greater part of their life in Manhattan. The benefit there is that having 1 bedrooms and some studios is a limited chance of children in school. There's also less garbage, drain on services. On the positive aspect is that they will live here. They'll go to the dry cleaner. They'll go to the pizzeria. They'll buy wine at the wine store. They'll eat at Stevens Green and American Bistro next door, and pay taxes to the school. The property, just for a point of everyone knows that the property on Midland is being built as more of a 1-bedroom also. So what's been expressed here by the applicant is that we have an overabundance of 1-bedroom apartments from a marketability perspective, and some of the questions were, will these properties survive? Will they be able to be rented? I think this has been brought to us saying that, we can just have a gazillion 1-bedroom apartments and then they don't get rented, and what good is that? So our newest member, Member Barondis, who's second to Mr. Ringwald, is the newest member, and Member Scalzo, have brought to us some interesting factoids about very nice high-end multi-bedroom apartments, which are being rented now for large amounts of money. And the target here that in discussions has been what's called empty nesters, and it's happening. It's actually happening, and from people from Bronxville who have sold their houses. Children don't live anymore in the house, and they have these large properties. We all know what they pay in property tax. So then they want to stay in the community, and they want to move to a rental, but they want the rental to have extra bedrooms for their children and grandchildren to visit. And Member Barondes and Member Scalzo have brought forward factual information, which has been backed up by BFJ Planning, that these high-end properties will have a minimal effect on the school district. It's something that we're concerned about. It's not every concern, it's not our key concern, maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't be, but as been expressed by our council, we have to, look at, the facts on the five-pronged test, but we're all human beings, we're all residents here, our concerns are very clear, and we want, to try and do something that's in the middle, and everyone's pretty much in this agreement that maybe this is the right way to go. Keep it very nice, very fancy apartments, and hopefully it'll work out. I want to just, for some residents or some questioners who may be new, relatively new to the area, there's a property called Revlon. That building was a commercial property, and it was empty for many, 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 many years. And it was a major bone of contention in this village as to what should happen with it. A lot of people were concerned about it going Section 8 or going just to become a low-income housing project taken over by the state. No one really knew what was going to happen. And this is a long time ago. I mean, this is probably 20 years ago off the top of my head, before this fantastic growth that we have seen on Main Street in the village of Tuckahoe. So it's important for newcomers to this village to understand that at that time, a developer named Davis came to this village and said that he was going to make apartments that were renting from $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month, which was crazy numbers back then. And people just thought that that was a whole bunch of hooey, that was never going to happen. It wasn't going to survive. And I remember I was very involved in it, listening to it. I was very concerned about it. And people felt that he was just a scam and he was going to go broke and then he would sell it to the state. And it would end up, being low-income housing. And at the same time, we had the Judge Sands decisions, which were coming down very hard in Yonkers. So this was very stressful. Could this really happen? Could it really work? Could Riverview end up being, it was close to the train station. Could it really work? And it did happen, and it did work. And to be, my anecdotal, from what I've picked up, evidence is that there are very few children in that apartment building complex that are going to the school. So it worked on a number of facets. It's brought in new people to the village, people who are adding to the economic base, and it has not really hit the costs to the village on the services as much as might have been projected. So with the great expertise of Member Barondes, who's in the real estate field, and Member Scalzo, who has done his homework, and the fact that the applicant has said to us quite clearly that the one-bedroom idea has been maxed out because there was a lawsuit from some of the residents on and a settlement on the Midland project. So, do we, want to do the one-bedroom thing? Plus, there's a lawsuit, if people are aware, that's going on in Bronxville. So I believe that, the path that we're taking with working with this developer who has acted recently in good faith, in my opinion, is that it is really the best route for us. And that if we are able to get an agreement, and we're not there yet, but there has been, exhaustive amount of work by this board, members of the board, which I'm extremely, appreciative of, with the building department, with the legal department, and we will continue to, go down that road to come to something that we're all, and something I do really look for is a unanimous agreement. I mean, we don't always are never going to have that, but this is our last major project on Main Street, and I really want to try and get everybody on the same page. So these are the answers that I have to the people who raised questions. So I'm going to ask if anyone who did raise questions has a follow-up question to please come to the microphone. Yes, sir, come on up. Okay, yes, Nathan, come on up.
I'm sorry, I don't feel like my question was addressed in the slightest.
Go ahead.
saying that people like to come up and ask for 4 floors is not the answer. The answer is, or the question is, how are they intentionally allowed to do that? If they can only fit 36 spots, they should only have units for 36 spots. How are they allowed, let's say I want to build 100 units to really maximize my profit on that space.
Yes.
I can't come in afterwards and go, well, I just wanted that many properties. Can I get a variance for, 80% off the number of parking spaces I need?
No, what we do is we look at what's been approved in the past, and based on the information that we have from BFJ planning, I believe, does anybody know, Bill, the number that we approved in Crestwood? 1.2? Yeah. 1.25. So we base it on what we've done in the past, based on the information from Frank Fish BFJ planning as to the.
So to give some examples, the zoning board changes very slowly over time, or the zoning code, I should say,
I
changes
understand, and you
slowly over
mentioned
time.
having this study regarding the changes based on commuters, et cetera. However, you also just mentioned a story about these nice Bronxville residents coming in and renting an apartment so that their children can come stay and visit and have a good time, and where are they gonna park? So, I'm just.
No, so we take all that into consideration, for sure. We start with what does the zoning code say, and then how much variance does any applicant want? And is it reasonable? Do we think it, the cost-benefit ratio? Because, the other side of it, of course, is that right now 100 Main Street's a hole in the ground, and it has been for 8 years with no property taxes being paid. It's an eyesore. It's a environmental problem for the neighbors. So
but
clearly
the
it's
building-
been a problem. Yes, go ahead.
But the building you're building here is not going to be, it's better than an eyesore, but it's also gonna be there for 100 years. So you're
We
putting-
hope so, for sure.
Which would be wonderful, but, so you're talking about putting in place a kind of 100-year parking issue, possibly.
That's
In-
what we're
In the
weighing.
grand scheme of things, let's hope you're
Absolutely.
right, and no one's gonna park there, but I think kind of, the fact that this building was intentionally designed to have more units than, it just blows my mind that you can kind of just.
Well, give an example of the code. The code requires 2 parking spots for every unit, whether it's a studio, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 5-bedroom, a 20-bedroom. That's the way the code's written. So you could have 3 studio apartments right next to the train, and you need 6 parking spots. And so the question that always comes before the board, is it reasonable? Is it not? And that's what we're, and many people would say something extreme like that is not reasonable, and that's what we try and weigh.
And given the community concerns, it just feels like this is, this might be something that's up to more debate than judgment. I don't know. I understand.
Well, that's why we have Frank Fish's study.
Maybe I could just mention very quickly, I don't want to, I know it's late, but there's also a separate memo from us, which Bill has, dated January 30th. We go into the parking ratios and what we've recommended to this board. These are not, we actually believe, in answer to your question, that there is enough parking provided in this building for the number of units currently proposed. And I can run through that for you. The ratios on a 1-bedroom are 1.2 spaces per unit. On a 2-bedroom, well, I don't need to go through.
It's okay. I'm sure you've done your homework, but.
Basically, if you take a look at this, these are not just guesses. These are actual numbers and surveys from other buildings.
As an actuary, I can tell you that you can make numbers whatever you want them.
No, we're not trying to, though. We are trying to, we serve the village. We don't serve the developer.
Who was very interested in this tax revenue.
Pardon?
Who's very interested in this tax revenue.
The village.
No, I'm
Look,
just trying to-
I would just
I'm just
point.
trying to
I would
answer
just
your
point
question.
out this started in December. We've been listening and listening. Nothing's been proved yet. No one here's made a decision anywhere. So we're clearly being very deliberate, and we're taking every concern.
Yeah. Just given that most of me and my neighbors literally will drive 3 blocks around Main Street to get to the train station because it's such a nightmare. This is not going to make it any better. This can only make it.
Just stay right there. Remember, Baron, does anything you want to say?
Yeah, I want to just say one thing, and that is that you also have to be aware that we're looking at not an inexpensive build and construction, and to attract the level of developer that we want to see in our village, we have to also provide him with enough profit incentive to invest at the level that he's going to be investing, incurring all of the risk as well. So there has to be a balance. Your points are all good, and they're all valid, and we're all concerned, as anybody would be, having to make their way down Main Street. But we also have to take into account that he has the right to build, and it is our job to weigh all of these many different factors, because they're all important, and your concerns are very important to us. But we have to find a way to create an environment that's going to attract the right kind of developer as well. So it's not easy.
Well said. Member Palladino, is anyone to add? No. Member Ringwald? No. What I want to say is this. It's very easy for a member of the public to come up here and say to us, do nothing. Do nothing. Make him do whatever the code is, and if he doesn't do anything, how does that help this village?
I would prefer nothing there rather than
An empty lot.
An extra 10 minutes of sitting in traffic.
An empty lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have said that to the other properties. We'd have half of Main Street empty now.
I would prefer an empty lot. You asked me. That's what I'm saying.
But think about what you're saying. What you're saying is no developments. Let's have, bowls of hay rolling down the street.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying he should be willing to follow the regulations. And at this point, you're essentially allowing people to just design things that don't follow anything, and then going afterwards, well, we'll make it fit and we'll make it work because you really want to build a lot of units. What's the matter with him not having 20 units, having 15 units?
But if it's not economically viable,
I doubt that is going to be
but that's your opinion.
low profit.
But that's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Well then, but I said, if you come back to what I talked about on Crestwood, there we had a situation where the guy could have built 15 three-bedroom units as of right, didn't even have to come to us. But came to us and said, I want 41 one-bedroom units. And that was and people said, well, you can't have 41 apartments there, that's nuts. But we weighed the balance and came, in favor of it, and we believe we made the right decision.
I thank you all for staying up late, and I hope you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to come to the microphone? Sir, did you?
Make a motion to continue the hearing?
The public
And
hearing?
wait for the applicant to submit the new plans.
I'll make a motion to keep the public hearing open. Mr. Maron, is there any comments you want before I make this motion?
The only change that we have to submit is that new front page that shows the additional retail. I would respectfully request that the public hearing be closed. There's nothing further that's going to be added by either the applicant. I don't think we've discussed what we're proposing. I don't think, nothing's going to change before the next meeting. So I would respectfully request that the hearing be closed.
I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back from, do I need to make a motion to, no, we're fine, right? Okay, we're back from our executive session because this has been a complicated issue. This has gone on for a long period of time. This board definitely wants to move the football down the field, to use a sports metaphor. However, there is not still a final set of plans submitted, so we feel that the public will need another opportunity to address a final set of plans. So because of that, I will make a motion right now to continue the public hearing on 100 Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, the public hearing will remain open. We're hoping that in a reasonable period of time, so that the building department will have plenty of time to evaluate the finalized set of plans for us, and the public will have time to examine those plans. And I can assure the applicant and all the residents that this board is an active board and will try to come to a resolution one way or another in the near future.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Okay, thanks.
Remind everybody to come if they have.
Yes, anybody from the public, this is very important. This is a very important issue. Sir, would you like to make comment? Would you like to come to the microphone? No, you have to come to the microphone. It's important. We'll allow this. I'm sorry everyone wants to go, but please.
What I want to know is, what was that property zoned for prior to this? Was it zoned for a taxpayer as well?
I don't understand what your question.
Business, residential, but what
Yes.
was the height on it, got the limitations? 42 feet.
They're within the height,
On all grades?
yes. But
No,
what,
no, it's-
The way it's written is by the,
well,
the way it's written is by the average grade. I mean, and our building inspector is the person that
but
makes
what they're
that
not entitled to
determination.
is a fourth floor.
Fourth floor,
This is a
yeah.
conflict in the zoning. They allow enough room for a fourth floor, but they still need a fourth floor
That's up
variance.
to you guys to pass that,
Yes.
and that will affect the occupancy.
Well, it depends on what they,
Parking,
we
everything.
don't have, if they want to put a 10-bedroom apartment there, that's not within our purview. Okay? We appreciate you coming down. We want to encourage everyone to come down and speak their minds. It's important to all of us. All right, I'm going to make a motion to close the meeting of March 11th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, Tuckahoe.